Kurt Fankhauser, Sunday, July 12th, 2026. Okay, we had the railroad train derailment last week where the tanker car was possibly at risk of leaking, and they had to evacuate within a quarter-mile radius around the derailment. So I remembered something that I had found out earlier this year through public records request. Okay, you know Brandon Gobrecht, our law director? Well, when he was appointed by the Republican Central Committee in October 2024, I was on Republican Central Committee back then, and a background check came up. One of the other Central Committee persons did a background check on Brandon Gobrecht, and when he was being interviewed, it was talked about of this trespassing charge he had on his background check. His explanation to that was it was on railroad property, and it was a disagreement about where the property line was, or confusion about where the property line was. I remember there. I specifically was 10 feet away from him when he was explaining this. Didn't think much of it. He said he said looking back, he wouldn't have pled guilty. He said if he knew what he knew now or something, he wouldn't have took that deal, which he did a guilty plea, apparently, but then he went through diversion with the prosecutor's office, which would have been Rob Ratliff's prosecutor at the time. And I looked it up on a Muni Court website, and it does mention defendant pled guilty on 6/5/2017, plea not accepted, referred to diversion. So he pled guilty, but the judge, there must have been a diversion thing going on there. Well, earlier this year, I looked more into this. I was curious about this criminal trespass charge, and you ain't gonna believe what I found with this thing. Okay, so prosecutor's office has to keep records of their cases. Brandon Gobrecht is a Muni Court prosecutor, so I had to make a public record request with his own office to obtain these documents. I bet that was awkward when he had to make sure that that record request was fulfilled. So get this. Okay, Brandon Gobrecht in 2017, it was filed May 4th, 2017, this criminal trespassing charge. Actually, might have been May 1st. Yeah, it was May 1st, 2017. So Brandon Gobrecht was 21 years old when this happened. Okay? So old enough to know better. Okay? Now it says here there was an arrest, but I don't know if he was arrested, or this paper says arrest record with the Bucyrus Police Department. Anyways, here's the actual ticket that he received, copy of the ticket. Brandon Gobrecht. It says, on or about first day of May 2017, did without privilege to do so knowingly enter or remain on land or premises, railroad tracks, property of Norfolk and Southern, which notice against unauthorized access or presence is given in violation of 2909.10D of the revised code, a fourth degree misdemeanor. So Brandon Gobrecht was cited for this criminal trespassing M4 on railroad property. It says 1st day of May 2017. Okay. Well, what else is there to this? Okay, so here's this paper. It says arrest, charge information. I'm unclear if he was arrested or if he was just issued the summons. Here's the Bucyrus Police Department report. Okay. This was written by Scott Davis, Officer Scott Davis. Okay. Now this is interesting. Get ready for this. Okay, this is Scott Davis writing this. It says on May 1st, 2017 at approximately 1811 hours, which was like 6 p.m., I met with agents from Norfolk and Southern Railroad on station about an investigation they were working on involving Brandon Gobrecht. I was told there had been an individual tampering with train cars by disconnecting the train cars from one another as they sat motionless on the train tracks. This ultimately led to an extended delay in train traffic through the area. They advised that the suspect is Mr. Gobrecht. I was advised that shortly thereafter on midnight on May 1st, Agent Kirk, and this would, I'm assuming this is Norfolk and Southern Railroad Police, Agent Kirk located Mr. Gobrecht on the tracks near Wiley and Rensselaer Street while investigating the complaints received over the weekend. Agent Kirk was able to conduct a traffic stop and warned Mr. Gobrecht for trespass on railroad property. After further consideration, Agent Kirk advised me that determined that Mr. Gobrecht's story did not add up and spoke with him again at Mr. Gobrecht's house. Agent Kirk then came on station, at which time I drafted a summons to serve Mr. Gobrecht. The summons was referenced criminal trespass on railroad property, ORC 2909.10D. Agent Kirk signed the summons as the complainant. I served the summons to Mr. Gobrecht at his residence, where he was given a May 10th, 2017 court date scheduled for 9 a.m. So it doesn't sound like Mr. Gobrecht was arrested. Now, also in this documentation, Law Director Evidence Request Form. Okay, date requested 5/10/17 says number of copies 2, format DVD. It says all body cam interview footage and audio recordings. So there might be video of this, at least maybe an interview with Mr. Gobrecht. I don't know if this is on file at the law director's office or the police department, or if the railroad police have it, but I'm going to try to find it. I can assure you of that. Okay, and then also here, it says video request sent to K. I'm assuming that's Agent Kirk on 5/10/2017. So Norfolk and Southern probably has this video of Brandon Gobrecht, maybe when they interviewed. Now they didn't witness him, from what I'm seeing in here. They didn't witness him uncoupling the train cars, but he was spotted on railroad property around the time frame that it was over this weekend that this had happened, and it was suspicious enough that they said his story didn't add up. That's why he was cited. I think that's why he also got this diversion deal, because it wasn't a very strong case from what I have seen here, unless the video evidence shows something else. But here's the deal, okay? Brandon Gobrecht, what on earth were you doing on railroad property? Okay, and he lied to the Republican Central Committee about the circumstances of that trespassing charge. He just said it had to do with confusion over the property line. I'm not buying that either. The story didn't add up. I wish we would have investigated this a little bit further before Brandon Gobrecht was appointed by the Republican Central Committee, because I'm pretty sure if they thought he was decoupling train cars, he wouldn't have got voted on as law director. Okay, so now here's the thing. Brandon Gobrecht is a prosecutor himself now. So he's I would call him a criminal. I mean, he was trespassing, he was cited for it, possibly doing some mischievous stuff. Now, what could have happened with this decoupling of train cars? Maybe Brandon Gobrecht could have caused a train derailment. You know, we had this big derailment here last week in Bucyrus. You know, that's why you don't mess around on railroad property, because of the safety issues that can cause. And we have a law director up here at Bucyrus City Hall that when he was the age of 21 should have known better. He was trespassing on railroad property, possibly decoupling train cars. I know Norfolk and Southern, or the railroad, whoever was investigating Agent Kirk, suspected that he was the one that was doing this. And, you know, his story didn't add up. His story don't ever add up. Listen to him in these council meetings. You know, Brandon Gobrecht, he's got a lying problem. Okay, I witnessed it when I was on city council. It's rather apparent here. So, is this a type of law director Bucyrus should have? Absolutely not. But right now we're stuck with him until somebody, or you know, somehow he can be gotten out of there. But I just thought because of this train derailment last week that everybody should be knowing about this, because, well, see, here's the thing. If somebody else is suspected of doing something similar and they're charged, Brandon Gobrecht's the one that's going to prosecute him, because he's a prosecutor now. This isn't going to work. You can't have the criminals prosecuting criminals here. So have a good day.